Welcome to the video that I've entitled Revising Essay Number 2. This video is basically going to talk about two different things. First of all, I'm going to talk about the essay that you have to turn in to me first, which is essay number 2. This is going to be an argumentative essay prompt, as you know, but it's a report and give your opinion prompt. And the second thing that I'll be talking about in this video is essay number 3, which is also going to be an argumentative prompt, but it's going to be a research and give your opinion prompt, okay? So that's going to be the main difference between the two. So I'll be talking about both things in this video, but we'll go with essay number 2 first, since that's what you owe me first. It's the immediate concern. But I will spend some of this video talking about essay number 3 as well, because you've got to start doing your research. Research is a long process, and I don't want you to have to wait until essay 2 has been turned in before you start doing your research, because then you won't have enough time. So let me first of all begin with essay number 2. And let me give you some assistance in helping you to come up with the rough draft for essay number 2. What I've done for you is I've given you a tool. It's a tool, it's a set of tools, it's a set of templates actually, from a book, a very, very good book called They Say, I Say. And these templates, I think, will help you to structure your thinking and argumentation into sentences. And that's really what the key challenge for you is to take all your ideas and to fit them into a structure that will help you to get your thoughts across. And so the first thing that I'm going to show you is these templates, which I've saved as a PDF file, and it's in Canvas right now. So I'm going to go there right now, and I've actually put several different chapters from this book, They Say, I Say, under the modules for essay number 2. So if you go to Canvas and you go to modules in essay number 2, you'll see a number of different chapters from this textbook called They Say, I Say, and the first chapter that I'd like to alert you to is entitled Entering the Conversation. So let me show you some of the templates in Entering the Conversation on pages 6 through 15, and you'll find this to be useful as you're trying to come up with your rough draft for essay number 2. So let's take you there right now. So here we are. Underneath essay number 2. Let's go to page 6, and I'll show you what I have in mind. Okay. So from pages 6 and on, I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see. I'm not going to read everything for you, but I want to alert you to several different templates that are going to be available to you. And these are templates. I invite you to read this on your own. I'm not going to read the whole thing for you, but what I want to alert you to are pages 6, 7, which give you good examples of putting two different points of view into the same conversation. The example that's given here is of Martin Luther King and how King structures his argument. These pages are good to read just to give you a sense of how other people have done the same kind of writing that you'll be doing for essay number 2. And I want to show you actually the specific templates that the book recommends you use. And these are good templates that I suggest that you use as well. So if you're going to disagree with somebody, there's a way of disagreeing with a position without being disagreeable. And some of the templates you can use in order to do this are given to you on pages 10 and 11. While I understand the impulse to blank, and you would fill in the opposite position to what you want to argue, my own view is blank. So you can use these words to introduce someone else's point of view and then follow up somebody else's point of view with your own point of view. In other words, it's a sort of a fill-in-the-blank template where you, in the first part of the sentence, you can give the point of view that you disagree with, and in the second part, you can put your own agreement. And there are other templates that follow the format also. While I agree with X that blank, I cannot accept her overall conclusion that blank. This is a way of disagreeing, but you're not necessarily being disagreeable. In other words, you're not wholeheartedly disregarding somebody else's point of view. Here's another one. While X argues blank and I argue blank, in a way we're both right. Let me give you the key thing that I think that we can derive from this chapter. It's this template of templates, which is sort of an overall structure for looking at the ways in which you can position your argument relative to other people's arguments. So, in recent discussions of blank, a controversial issue has been whether blank. On the one hand, some argue that blank, from this perspective, blank. On the other hand, however, others argue that blank. In the words of blank, one of this view's main proponents, and then there's a quote given over here, according to this view, blank. In sum, then, the issue is whether blank or blank. So again, this is all a template to give one paragraph. You'll notice that this is all one paragraph that gives a summary of not only other people's positions on this issue, but also why this issue is important to discuss. What's at stake in this issue? This template gives you a chance to begin anywhere you want. You can begin with the quote and then work your way back to why you think this is a controversial issue. In other words, it's giving you a grid, and by filling in the different parts of the grid, it doesn't matter where you start. You don't have to start from the beginning. You can start with the quote. You can take the quote and then paraphrase it, put it in your own words. The good thing that I like about this template is that you don't have to start with the first word and end with the last word in the paragraph. The template kind of gives you a place to enter whatever point you're at, whether it's choosing a quote or if you've already gotten a quote and you've been able to paraphrase it, then to put that quote into an opposing position with another quote, whatever place you are in your thinking, this template allows you to start writing. In other words, you don't have to worry about your thoughts proceeding logically from the beginning of a paragraph to the end of a paragraph. That's why I recommend this template to you. The other thing that this template gives you is, besides being able to summarize other people's positions, it allows you to then transition from other people's ideas to your own view. My own view is that blank. Though I concede that blank, I still maintain that blank. In other words, notice that these words are allowing you to enter into a conversation that other people have taken part in, and then give your own perspective while acknowledging other perspectives, and nevertheless coming back and saying, I still maintain that. This is exactly the kind of template that you want to use when you're writing your second essay. And then it gives you other sentences as well. So I would advise you to look at this template. And I think to make your life a little bit easier, what I've done is, and by the way, the rest of this chapter is also good. I'm not going to read it for you right now. But again, feel free to on your own. What I've done is I've taken that same template of templates, and I have basically filled it out for you using one way, right? One way of doing this for the death penalty. So I've taken that same template of templates and I have filled it out as a sample in case you would like to choose the death penalty as one option, as an option for your second essay. Here's what this template of templates might look like if you were to do it for the death penalty. So, in recent discussions of, and then I filled in, capital punishment, a controversial issue has been whether, and then I filled in, racism has been legally protected through the enforcement of the death penalty. Now remember, I wrote this in, I did not write this sentence first. What I actually did was I actually put some of my quotes in first, and then I worked backwards to fill in this sentence. I just want to stress to you that this template allows you to, again, develop your writing from your thinking rather than in the sequence in which it's going to appear in the final product. I think that's the key point that I want to give to you. So in other words, look at the quotes first, and if you want to begin with the quotes and work backwards to this part of the template, you can do that. So, again, an example of using this. In recent discussions of capital punishment, a controversial issue has been whether, and here's what I filled in. Racism has been legally protected through the enforcement of the death penalty. On the one hand, some argue that, and here's what I put in. Most crimes which have historically been punished by capital punishment have taken place in cities with predominantly African American populations. So that's the blank that I filled in. From this perspective, and here is the second thing that I put in, and here's a quote that I got from one of the sources that I actually gave to you. From this perspective, the statistic that, despite comprising less than 15% of the U.S. population, African Americans comprise more than half of the nearly 4,000 people executed from 1930 to 1967, and 90% of those executed for rape, is nevertheless explicable. So from this perspective, the perspective of the fact that most crimes are taking place in cities with largely predominant African American populations, this statistic has an explanation. And what is that explanation? A larger percentage of African Americans are put on death row because cities where the most heinous crimes are committed have a larger percentage of African Americans to begin with. So this is the position opposite to what I'm going to be arguing, but the template allows me to take the opposite position and acknowledge it. Sometimes that's what you have to do. You've got to acknowledge the opposing position before you get around to the position that you want to state. So on the other hand, and here's the position that I want to take, and again, it's not one that I want to take, it's one that you may want to take. I just give this to you as an example. On the other hand, others argue that, and here's where the template gets filled in, these numbers tell the story of racism, not of a greater tendency among African Americans to commit heinous crimes. And again, this is a position that allows you to take other people's evidence and to reinterpret that evidence in terms of the argument that you believe that data is telling you. This is data. These are hard facts, but how you interpret these hard facts may tell a different story depending upon your perspective, right? You can take facts, and those facts can give two different stories depending on how you look at those facts. And so this filling in this template allows for a discussion around these facts, but from a different perspective than the people who use these facts to say that African Americans are really the more, the more violent criminals. So, in the words of, and here are the authors that we discussed in class, and we put these up on the board. In the words of Sunstein and Wolfers, those states that impose the death penalty also have a historic culture of violence, including lynching. And so, why do I want to give that quote? Because, and the rest of the template allows me to fill in a response to this quote. According to this view, and here's what the template allows you to fill in. The death penalty has been a legally sanctioned method used by Caucasians to keep African American criminals off the streets rather than Caucasian criminals. And so this quote, it can be used to reach this kind of conclusion. And so you've been able to counterbalance two different positions without dismissing the validity of either of the two. In sum, then, the issue is whether, and here's where the template allows you to fill in the blanks as far as the issue is concerned. In sum, then, the issue is whether the death penalty is applied by a legal system that really is colorblind, or, and here's the second part of the template, one that uses the death penalty as a legally protected camouflage for institutional racism. And again, using this template allows you to express the complexity of the debate that's going on around capital punishment, rather than just simply saying, I oppose the death penalty because I just think it's wrong, right? That's a simplistic argument. A template like this allows you to enter into the debate at the level of the sophistication of the issues. And here's the rest of the template filled out. My own view is that, and here's the part that I filled in, the lack of the same legal protection for black victims, black victims of heinous crimes throws into doubt the fairness of laws punishing black perpetrators of those crimes. Though I concede that, and here's the second template that you might put in, crime rates are higher in areas with higher percentage of African Americans. The template ends over here. I still maintain that, and here is where you would fill in some new materials. The mere presence of more African Americans in a high crime area is not more evidence that more African Americans are inclined towards committing unpardonable crimes. If we look at these same areas, the number of African Americans living in poverty and not going to college is higher than the national average of African Americans living in other cities. Although some might point to, again, here is the template that you put in, some might point to this as evidence for the link between poverty and crime within predominantly African American communities, I would reply that the persistence of this link amongst most African American communities in the U.S. is evidence of a larger systemic social problem. And again, allowing you to reinterpret, giving your reader a sense that you're taking available evidence and interpreting in a way that shows a different story, that shows a different perspective than what has been argued, is really one of the keys to writing a good argumentative essay. And then lastly, this issue is important because, and again, you can fill in this template with something like, evidence of racism in the application of the death penalty takes us away. And again, the key word here, evidence of racism in the application of the death penalty, takes us away from what should be the main question surrounding the death penalty. Does it really deter from future crime? So in other words, the template that the book gives you even gives you a chance to talk about why your position in this argument is important. It even allows you to stake out the claims of why your position is important. So I would encourage you guys to use those templates. If you need further assistance besides those pages, I've put in 2 more chapters from the They Say, I Say book. One of them is pages 58 and 60. It's from a chapter in that book called 3 Ways to Respond. And then there's another chapter from that book called Skeptics May Object that I've put on Canvas as well. So let me just briefly take you to 3 Ways to Respond and Skeptics May Object, just to show you what's there. And then I'm going to move on to the next thing. So let's take a look over here. Okay. So first I'll take you to 3 Ways to Respond, pages 58 and 60. And again, more useful templates over here as well. If you wanted to, let's say for instance, disagree with an author, again, other ways of doing it are listed on page 58. X is mistaken because she overlooks, and then fill in the template. X's claim that blank rests upon the questionable assumption that, fill in the template. I disagree with X's view that blank because, as recent research has shown, blank. X contradicts herself, can't have it both ways. On the one hand, she argues blank. On the other hand, she also says blank. By focusing in on blank, X overlooks the deeper problem of blank. So that's a useful set of templates to use as well. And then on page 60, there are templates for agreeing as well. I agree that blank, because my experience blank confirms it. X is surely right about blank because, as she may not be aware, recent studies have shown that blank. X's theory of blank is extremely useful because it sheds light on the difficult problem of blank. Those unfamiliar with the school of thought may be interested to know that it basically boils down to blank. Again, these are good templates for agreeing as well. And then let me take you to the last document, which is going to be the document for skeptics, the skeptics chapter of this book. And that's also a very, very good chapter. Again, I'm not going to read it for you right now, but it's a very good chapter to read, not only for working on essay number 2, but also for working on essay number 3 as well. This is a chapter that talks about how it's important to acknowledge the other point of view, to acknowledge the other perspective whenever you're whenever you're writing an argument. It's called planting a naysayer in your text. And it talks about anticipating objections. Remember one thing: whenever you write an argumentative essay, you've got to assume that your reader is going to be skeptical about your position. And so, in order to acknowledge that there may be criticism or skepticism on the part of your reader, how should you write that into your writing? So this chapter's got some great templates for being able to do this. As templates for entertaining objections. At this point, I would like to raise some objections that have been inspired by the skeptic in me. She feels that I've been ignoring blank. That's one template. Yet some readers may challenge my view by insisting that this is allowing you to acknowledge the skeptical reader and write that hesitation into your own essay. Of course, many will disagree on the grounds that blank. This is another great template for, again, bringing skepticism into your writing without necessarily undoing your whole position. And again, it's got templates for naming your naysayers. Here, many feminists would probably object that blank. But social Darwinists would certainly take issue with the argument that blank. And again, when you name your naysayers, you allow yourself to acknowledge their positions without necessarily saying that, look, I'm wrong. Okay? So it's a very, very good chapter. I suggest that you read it and particularly pay attention to page 88 over here. These are templates for making concessions while still standing your ground. This is something that students often have difficulty with. I think that these types of templates may help you. Although I grant that blank, I still maintain that blank. Proponents of X are right to argue that blank, but they exaggerate when they claim that blank. While it is true that blank, it does not necessarily follow that blank. On the one hand, I agree with X that blank, but on the other hand, I still insist that blank. So again, feel free to use these templates. It's not cheating or plagiarism to use these types of templates. Rather, it's a good kind of tool to structure your own thinking. Let me go on to talk a little bit about essay number 3. So hopefully all that will help you to get your rough drafts ready. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions about anything that's said. And of course, we're going to have the WebEx meeting this coming week. And of course, you can raise further questions during that WebEx meeting during our live conversation. For essay number 3, this is going to be your research essay, right? And so I assigned an entire chapter for you guys to read to help you to do your research. So now what I'm going to talk about is pages 114 to 131 from your textbook. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things in this long reading that I gave you. The two things that you're going to want to pay attention to right now, I'm looking at page 115 in your book. If you want to open up your book, you'll see that there's a table on page 115. It's a table that lists the situation, issues, and questions when you're dealing with research. What I would pay attention to are the issues and questions. Usually the issue that you're dealing with whenever you're doing any kind of research paper is something that can be simplified into an either or, right? Either we pay attention to saving money on taxes and so get rid of the appeals process for the death penalty, or we use the death penalty, or we say the death penalty is a deterrent and so our tax dollars are worth it. So usually the issue can be simplified. However, the questions that arise from these issues are much more complex. And so on page 115, you will notice under the column that begins with questions, you'll have sentences that begin with under what conditions should. What would persuade X to do Y? Is there another way besides X to accomplish Y? Keep these types of questions in mind as you're trying to figure out what you want to write about for essay number 3. Okay, so that's one thing. To avoid binary thinking about an issue, Be prepared to write a brief position statement in defense of a point of view with which you do not agree. And I already talked about that, planning the naysayer, from the They Say, I Say book. The other last things that I wanted to draw your attention to are on pages 118 and on. So if you turn to page 118 in your textbook, you'll notice the different categories for doing your research. The first one is written in blue on page 118. Build on and extend the ideas of others. If you look in Canvas, one way to build on and extend the idea of others is to use strong verbs. So you have something in Canvas under modules and Essay 2 called Developing Arguments. This is really a very, very good page for you to turn to in Canvas to help you to use strong verbs in order to structure your writing. So I'll give you an example of this. Go under Modules, go under Essay 2, and then look under Developing Arguments. And once you go there, you'll notice, if you scroll down the page, you'll notice there's a section there that gives you some strong verbs you can use to extend or build on the ideas of others. And here's a list of verbs and sentence patterns for argument. I think this really will help you with what's being described on pages 118 and 119 of your textbook, using verbs like believe, criticize, describe, declare, illustrate, report, suggest. And using these kinds of templates that are in Canvas, I think can help you with that building on and extending the ideas of others. I also want to draw your attention to a couple of other things as well. On pages 119 and 120, the authors talk about reading to discover a writer's frame. I also put another chapter from the They Say, I Say book. It's called The Art of Quoting, and there are some very good templates on pages 47 to 50 that can help you with this part of your research, reading to discover a writer's frame. I'll take you there briefly. The Art of Quoting on pages 47 to 50, again in Canvas. So let's just take you there. And again, it'll be under Essay 2, and They Say, I Say, pages 47 and on. Let's see here. Okay, so again, templates for introducing quotes. This is a great way. These are great templates for understanding the framework within which someone else is giving an argument. Here they are on page 47 and 48 and 49 as well. Those are the pages that I would have you draw your attention to. Pages 47, 48, and 49. These are important things. Let's see here. That's just about what I wanted to cover. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is on page 129. So just skipping ahead. Everything else is important, but I would draw your attention on page 129 to the section that's entitled Formulate Your Topic as a Question. That's really important. I hope that you'll read that little paragraph on page 129 and remember that whatever topic you're deciding to research on and argue in favor of or against, you always want to raise that topic as a question that hasn't been settled yet, and so you are justified in writing a paper about it and raising points about it that will try to convince your reader to side with you and not another, perhaps equally valid, right? Perhaps equally well argued position. And keep that in mind, Okay. I hope that this isn't too much information. I realize it's a lot to get through, but all of this is just to help you. If you can join for the WebEx meeting that we're going to have, that'll be great. If you cannot, I think everything in this video should still stand you in good stead. So I'm going to sign off now.